I was in there on my own, and there was one other police officer on the station. I'd arrested somebody for drugs, I think it was. He just suddenly flipped. I hit the panic switch and I thought, I'm going to end up fighting with him here in an interview. My name's Maca McMillan, also known as Maca. My final rank was Detective Inspector. I joined the police when I was 30 years old, so I was a late bloomer. I've worked on a lot of murders over the years because I was on the major crime unit for about 12 years, I think, in total. But I do remember my first murder. A woman had been viciously assaulted by two brothers. Effectively, she'd been stamped to death. You know, it's horrific, the murder. And I just remember being very nervous because, you know, I've been chosen to work on this murder inquiry. So it's the first time you've ever done this. You want to do your best, and everything you do to the nth degree. When you eventually walk into your first crime scene, whether that be as a detective sergeant or a detective inspector, you're just very aware of the responsibility that's laid upon you. You're investigating the death of another human being, so you've got to get it right. But there's always that initial nervousness, which then becomes competency because you do it so much. So the importance of interviewing people and getting their account of what happened is sometimes you will get people confessing to murders and they haven't done it at all. Obviously, you mentioned the Ripper case back in the 70s and 80s. Where somebody wrote up and said that I did that. But yeah, people will say that they have committed a murder, but it may be mental health issues or they want the notoriety, which is why the interview is very important, because it will link into the post-mortem. Any mutilations, it will link into the post-mortem because they'll tell you how they dismembered a body. The pathologist can confirm that. When we interview suspects for murder, we'll have a strategy behind this. We'll have what we call a Tier 5 interview advisor. You can build up pressure without actually shouting or whatever. So you're introducing your evidence as you go through. So the principles is we'll give them a chance to say whether they're guilty or not. Cut to the chase. We've arrested you on suspicion of murder, so tell us about it. At the end of the day, police officers really do want the truth. We're not here to stitch people up. And if they're not guilty of an offence, then we give them a chance to say that they're not guilty and why, or where they were. I was dealing with a murder. It was a murder over a drug deal. One person stabbed another person once. It went into his heart and he died. So we started off the interview and the response was, it wasn't me, I wasn't there. So we gave them some more disclosure to ramp the pressure up. It then went to, all right, I was there, but it wasn't me. So we ramped the pressure up with some more evidence and it went to, okay, it was me, but I didn't mean to do it. So that's how you ramp pressure up, because you'll see changing stories. An innocent man can't tell different stories. If they keep changing it as you give the evidence, you're not far away. When you're speaking to witnesses or suspects, certainly for witnesses, because you want information from them, and the suspects to be fair, but you may get no comments. But when you're interviewing a witness, it's important that you ask open questions, because if you ask a closed question, did you do this? You will get a closed answer, no. So you ask an open question, you'll get an open answer. So people, want to talk, and there's things you can do to help them keep talking, because if they've, you have to ask them an open question and it's a bit short, use the silence, bit of prompt, say nothing, but just go. They'll fill that gap. So you ask an open question, you get an open answer, because what you want is as much information as you can to help your murder investigation. What we don't do as professional interviewers is get angry, get frustrated. If somebody wants to give a no comments interview because the solicitor's told them, then they're going to give a no comments interview. I've had people physically turn round and look at the wall, won't engage, they'll deflect. So that's where you've got to be mentally agile as an interviewer to go, okay, you haven't answered that question, so we'll go back to it. It's because they'll try and take you away. Because the best lie to tell is one that's based on as much truth as possible, because they can talk freely about it. The bit that you need to catch them out on is the lie, and that's when they'll deflect. So you need to know your case. You need to know all the evidence. in the case so that you know when they're lying. So very early in my police career, I was in uniform. Not many police officers on that station. I'd arrested somebody for drugs, I think it was. I was in there on my own, and there was one other police officer on the station. Anyway, he just suddenly flipped and started banging the table and getting really aggressive. I hit the panic switch and I thought, I'm going to end up fighting with him here in an interview. The other officer came in and luckily we calmed him down. But yeah, that's probably the only time when somebody's actually flipped an interview. It turned out he had chronic toothache, is what it was. So everything was fine in the end. I'm fascinated by the psychology of an interview. Let's say it's a domestic murder, they've murdered the partner. Okay, they're really uncomfortable when you put a picture down and put it in front of them. The picture of his partner was there and he would just subconsciously reach over and turn it face down. So the interviewer, keeping the eye contact, would reach over and turn it back up again. So again, there's a psychology there. So when you have breaks, you know, what you introduce when, and there'll be a tell. Not everybody's got a poker face all the time. It might be a twitch, you might be moving uncomfortably in the seat, or, you know, going totally off subject. So again, the skill of the interview is knowing what was that question that made them uncomfortable and then going back to it again and again to see where it leads. I was interviewing somebody it was a kidnap robbery, whereby they went and kidnapped his whole family or tied them up in their own homes. The bloke owned a jewellery shop. So they took him down to the jewellery shop. He had to empty open the shop for them. They emptied it out and then they took him back to his family. They poured petrol on his family, threatened to burn them and everything. And we had DNA on a movable object, a cable tie, that was used to tie his family up. And I'd worked with cable ties as a technician, and as the bloke was going, no comment. So everything I asked him, no comment, no comment. So did you plan this? No comment. I says, did you practice it? He went, no comments. I could see he's going, what do you mean practice? I says, because I've worked with cable ties. I says, so what you've planned is wear balaclavas to hide your face, wear gloves to cover your fingerprints. I says, but you haven't practiced putting cable ties on people. I says, because with woolen gloves, it's almost impossible to pull them tight. I said, so what you've done is you've got them on, you can't pull it tight, so you've used your teeth. And his face was a picture. I knew that's exactly how he'd done it. And he just went, he looked at me, a bit of a grin and went, no comment. I went, that's how your DNA's on there.